You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network, the home of the Options Podcast. For more quality options programs, visit theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app available in the iTunes and Google Play stores. Select programs are also available via live stream at mixlr.com/options-insider. That's mixlr.com/options-insider. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, stocktwits.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions at theoptionsinsider.com. And now, it's time for the show that breaks down the options market from unusual activity alerts to market analysis, strategy overviews, listener questions, and much more. If it involves puts and calls, then our all-star panel will break it down. It's time to hit the Option Block with your host, Mark Longo from the Options Insider Media Group and co-hosts Uncle Mike TOSAW from St. Charles Wealth Management, Mark the Greasy Meatball Sebastian from OptionPit.com, Andrew the Rock Lobster, Joe Benazzi from OptionPit.com, and Henry the FLOWMASTER Schwartz from CBOE. The Option Block is brought to you by CBOE. When it comes to trading volatility, trust CBOE, the creator of the VIX Index, for in-depth and relevant information. CBOE's tools and services gives you up-to-date trade insights, analysis, and positions of VIX options and futures. No matter what kind of trader you are, there's plenty of useful information to take the guesswork out of creating your portfolio strategy and to help you make more educated moves in the market. Visit www.cboe.com/VIX today to learn more. And now, get ready to hit the Option Block.
All right, everybody. That music means we are back on the docket, back with your bi-weekly options extravaganza, known around the globe as the Option Block. My name, of course, Mark Longo from theoptionsinsider.com, as well as from a little thing we like to call around these parts, the Options Insider Radio Network. Pleased to have so many of you folks joining us out there these days on demand, live. Of course, if you're listening on demand, all we ask that you do keep rating and reviewing so that so many new folks can continue to discover not just this show, but the entire network these days. And speaking of discovering content, if you want to do just that, you want to go above and beyond, we had a great pro Q&A yesterday with the one, the only, the now pirate mode Dr. Vic's rocking an eye patch, courtesy of his massive head trauma recently. Pleased to say he's doing well. If you want to hear a little bit of him, you can check out @options on Twitter. We post the clips there after the shows. If you want to check out the full thing, get all the nearly 200 other awesome exclusive episodes we got up there for you, as well as live access to this. Giveaways coming up in about a day or so. We'll be giving away the Pro Trading Crate for March. So all sorts of fun on the docket. You want to get your name in the hat for that and everything else. theoptionsinsider.com/pro is the place to go to learn more as we learn who's joining us on the old program today. First, joining us from a dark, stormy, some might say hellish hinterland of Chicago. Who could live there? Only one man could live there. He is the uncleest of Mikes, Mr. Uncle Mike TOSAW from St. Charles Wealth Management. Uncle Mike, no rock lobster today, so I'm flipping the script on you a little bit. How's that?
Yeah, that kind of freaked me out. I wasn't sure where to go with that. So normally I'm in sunny, scenic St. Charles, but I guess it's not quite as good today.
I figured that would throw you for a loop. That's what I'm all about here as a host, mixing things up, keeping our guests guessing, and just wrecking the show for everyone at the end of the day. That's my job. All right, and also joining us, I'm sad to say I'm not beaming in next to him this week as we're munching down on candy and delicious snacks, but he is taking a break from his manly endeavors in the woods far north, upstate New York, there to join us here on the old OB. He is the FLOWMASTER himself, Mr. Henry Schwartz from CBOE. Mr. FLOWMASTER, welcome back to the show. Glad you could put down the chainsaw to talk about some options with us, sir, for an hour.
Thank you, Mark. Yeah, it's actually, I'm taking a day off. Today, you got to call me the Tree Master. but I am happy to take an hour and talk options and watch the market. So
the Arbor Master, the Arborist.
There you go.
All right, we'll be joined in a little bit, fashionably late as always, by the greasiest of meatballs. But no waiting for him. Let's dive right on into it, listeners. It is time for the trading block.
It's time to break down the latest topics, trades, and trends in the world of options. It's time for the trading block.
All right, everybody. Welcome to the trading block, the portion of the show where we break down what the heck is trading out there, what is lighting up our tape as we kick off the show here today, listeners. And for the most part right now, we're seeing a bit of green, if perhaps less green than we were seeing earlier in the session. The day started off pretty firmly in the green, S&P up in the neighborhood, in the ballpark of 40.5 or so. As we're kicking off the show now, it's come in a little bit. It's up to about 40, in the 40-30s range, almost 44. Actually, just ticked 40. So up about 1/3% or close to it. The Dow is pretty much unched down the day, and the Nasdaq's up a little over 0.5%. So struggling to keep the green. Whether we'll keep it for the rest of the session is an open question. These days, you wait 5 minutes, and the market's going to dip in some, or move, I should say, really, in some other crazy directions. Who knows, even by the end of the show where we'll be hanging out. Right now, coming into the start of the show, we have VIX just kissing. It was just kissing a 20 when we kicked off the show. 1995, that puts it off a little over 1.5, about 1.55 points to be precise on the week. So obviously an interesting time out there in VIX land. VVIX at a 90, so still frothy, still elevated, still above that 75 floor we were talking about not too long ago, but also down about 7 points from where we were on Monday's show. VXX at about a 46 when we kicked off the show. That's down about 3 points from this time on Monday. UVXY back below a 5 handle, 480 when we kicked off the show, down about 0.5 point from Monday. SVIX 1610, so obviously as our inverse friends are moving in the other direction, up almost a full point, about 0.9 on the week. UVIX 16 3/4, down about 2.5 points from Monday's show. And VolQ, a.k.a. the at-the-money vol of the NASDAQ 100, 22 3/4, down a whopping full point from where it was on Monday's show. Let's go around the horn, the opposite of the way we started. Let's go out to the Tree Master first. Mr. Tree Master, sir, we're not busy chopping down trees. What's catching your eye in the markets today and this week, sir?
Well, it's funny. Today is the first day this week that it looks like we're going to break 40 million contracts. It's actually been and the average this year is around 45 million. So it's actually been a really quiet week, like very, very quiet. We're kind of out of most of the interesting earnings. I think a lot of people were waiting for this morning's, what did we have, jobs number? It's kind of, I think people do a lot of waiting around, and then they make their moves, and then they kind of start waiting again.
Lots of waiting out there. Everyone's waiting to see what shoe will drop from the Fed next. You never know, listeners. All we know is at the end of the day, everything backs into the Fed in some way, shape, or form out there. Let's now go out to the dark, the stormy, the terrifying, not quite shores. I guess they do have the Fox River, so you could say the shores of the Fox River, but to St. Charles, where we are joined by a very brave man who lives there. He is the uncleest of Mikes. Mr. Uncle Mike, sir, what's catching your eye as you peer nervously out the window to see what horrors await you in the nightmare landscape of St. Charles?
Well, I mean, you do raise a valid point. This is the home of the St. Charles North Star football team, 2022 quarterfinalist at 7A. And so there should be a lot of fear in you if you're looking at that football team for what they're going to do for 2023. So I got to tell you, so you make a valid point, Mark. But in terms of the markets, I think that just with yesterday's big move, the market is kind of taking a break today. And a lot of it, just as I'm looking at it, we are getting some movement in silver. Silver is up 2% on the day. So that's something to make a definite note of because we are getting a little bit of a push in the commodity realm. We also have oil up 1.5% on the day today. 10-year note is flat, literally flat on the day. It just went negative slightly, right as I said that, but we are flat on the day in the 10-year note. And so we are getting some movement in the commodity realm. But the thing that is kind of catching my eye right now is the movement based upon the sectors. And this is from everything that I can tell, we have consumer discretionaries as well as tech putting this market higher on the day. Financials, we're still XLF, for example, is still down or is down on the day 0.6%. And then as we're going through this, I think the other thing that we need to just continue to keep an eye on in a market like this would be the regional banks, KRE. KRE is an ETF that tracks regional bank or that will trade regional banks. That is down 1.6% on the day today. And just to give you guys an idea of it, right before, or probably about 2 months ago, it was at $64 or right around the $65 a share mark. It's at the $43. It's in the low 40s right now. And it's kind of dropped there, of course, with the SVB debacle. And we're just kind of sitting there at this point in time. So at some stage, what I'd like to see, if and I don't think I even have any regional bank holdings, to tell you the truth. But what I would like to see is kind of a reverse canary in the coal mine, so to speak. I'd like to see KRE catch a bid, and I think that could really help our market, in that there's still a lot of fear out there in terms of what are you exposed to. And actually, full disclosure, I do own a little bit of a private regional bank, but from a public regional bank, what are you exposed to in the short term? And so that's something that I'd like to see. And then when we can see that regional banks can show that they are fairly solvent, which hopefully they are, then I think that will help a lot of the marketplace. But that's what we're looking at right now. But let's be honest, we're waiting to see what the Fed says next. And it's still going to be a while till we hear anything from the Fed. That's what's going to really move the market. And that's what I'm seeing today.
It all comes back to the Fed at the end of the day, listeners. Let's see what it all comes down to right now from an overall volume perspective. Let's start in the major indices. Well, let's start with VIX. 335,000 contracts on the tape. That's not nothing. That's certainly a decently active day. Back, let's say, a month or two ago when the ADV was about 500,000, 335 would have seemed like a lot. Now with the ADV hanging out, I should say, around 860,000 contracts right now, 335 seems a little bit meager by comparison. But again, the day is young. The worm could turn, and that would certainly bring some more volume on. Whether we'll hit that ADV today seems like an open question. SPY, however, moving well past half of its ADV. The ADV about 5.15, or should be the ADV 9.72 million right now, and putting up about 5.12 million contracts right now. So SPY looking decently robust. But then again, it's a day that ends in Y. It doesn't seem like anything could really derail SPY volume outside of really the dog days of summer, or perhaps, the December holiday period. Outside of that, SPY is going to put up numbers. The S, 1.43 million, so also closing in on half of its newly resurgent, newly impressive ADV, which is almost 3 million. 2.9 million is the ADV in the S right now. And how many times did we used to say it, listeners? Not too long ago on the show. Oh, the S is at 1 million contracts right now. That means it's a busy day in the market. And now we're at 1.43 million. And we just shrug our shoulders and we say, we expect that now because of all this crazy single day madness. Let's see what's going on out there today. I'm looking at the top 20 most active in the S right now, listeners. And there is a whole one in the top 20 that is not expiring today. So that's actually a lot. Usually it's 20 for 20, all expiring today. So that's intriguing. We get a little bit farther out into the top 40. We actually see a decently healthy mix. Looks like about, I want to say almost 10. Yeah, about 10 of the top 40 are not expiring today. So that's actually a lot. So that's kind of interesting in and of itself. Maybe not exactly an explosive day, but a decently active day. Some more of these non-zero day names and non-zero day contracts can actually make their way into the top 40, let alone the top 20 out there, which is interesting. Small caps, IWM, 613,000 contracts on the tape right now. IWM off about 0.25% right now, trading right around 175. Small caps, of course, have kind of been leading the dance for a little bit in terms of the sell-off of late. They really got beaten up, and they kind of rallied a bit, obviously, as well. But, yeah, people were coming for small caps before just about anything else out there. And right now, today, still doing impressive numbers. 613,000, the ADV, 1.2 million. Again, it takes a lot for IWM to maintain volume north of 1 million, yet it's been hanging out ADV north of 1 million for a little while now. So that's impressive in and of itself. that shows you there's something afoot out there in the small caps. And the Qs, 2.1 million, the ADV, 3.14 million. I won't bore you with the Qs. Kind of like SPY, day that ends in Y. The Qs are going to put up numbers, and today, no exception. Let's go out, listeners, to the single names, see what's lighting it up out there today. Is it a day that the single names were forgotten, or is it a day that they're actually putting up some numbers? And it seems like it's actually a pretty decently active day, listeners. We kick things off with Bank of America, so Contagion Fears rocking our top 10 once again. 271,000 contracts. That's what it cost you to break into the top 10. That is nothing to sneeze at. We usually have days, or we can have days out here, 150, 170, barely 200,000 contracts. At 271, that's actually a decently active day. A Bank of America, 28.25 right now, off nearly half a point, or about 1.5% on the day. Threatening its 52-week low, which it hit, I think, in the last week out there. Yeah, 26.32. It hit it last Friday. So obviously off that low, but also far away from its nearly 43 high it's set about a year ago out there. Number 9, this one has been a perennial top 10er ever since, of course, the Activision deal was announced. But then, of course, recently with this new AI game going on out here as well, it's been a big mover. This is Microsoft, number 9, 290,000 contracts. Microsoft up about $1.40 today, about 0.5%, trading a little bit shy of 282 right now. Started the day at 284.25. So as I mentioned earlier, we started off a little bit more robust, kind of settling off that now, but still up on the day out there. And again, good for 290,000 contracts. Another name that really started to just become a perennial top 10er out here ever since the layoffs and all that stuff, and it really breaking 100 in the wrong direction. It's Meta, now back, of course, above 200, 207 and about a half, up 210. If you want to know the saga of that poor guy we talked about who got run over buying the Nove 200s in the wrong direction, listen to Options Oddities. We kind of dug it up on that show. It was kind of fascinating. He kept at it, listeners. He kept plugging away. He kept rolling down, or he kept getting run over. And then lately, he's obviously with this pop, he started to make some of that back. So we thought that person was done, but clearly they had enough to keep playing until the worm turned in their favor. And Meta, at least right now, looking good again, up 210 and putting up 328,000 contracts. Number 7, the chip zone coming early today, listeners. AMD, 367,000 contracts on the tape. We got it at about a 98 right now, up about $1.90, or obviously about 1.9% out there for AMD. Closing in on 100, so it's not that far from its 52-week high of 116 and about a third, and quite a ways from its 52-week low of 54.5, listeners. Obviously, the last couple of months have been an intriguing time for the chip space. Speaking of chips, Intel playing in a whole bunch of different areas out there. 401,000 contracts on the tape for Intel. Haven't seen them in the top 10 in quite some time. Obviously, Intel, one of my old stomping grounds there on the CBOE. Again, but they don't really make it into our collective consciousness too often out there. But obviously, something is afoot out there in Intel today. The stock's up about 80 cents or 2.5%, trading 32 1/3. That's 52-week high is $54. 52-week low is about 24.5. So obviously closer to the latter than the former, but it has rebounded nicely from that low. Let's just look really quickly, see what's trading out there. Go to Intel. Let's fire up the FLOWMASTER's machine. Let's see if it works when he's out of the office. Yes, it does. And we've got the Jan 50s, 5.0s, going up nearly 30,000 times today, followed by 22,000 of the March 32. Seems like mostly overwriting. And also almost 21,000 of the March 32 halves going up today. So maybe a bit of a tight vertical there as well. But intriguing stuff. A lot of paper. Tons of paper going up. And it's not XDiv or anything like that. Doesn't seem like it's, I don't know what's driving this paper out there, but Intel on the rampage today, at least from a paper perspective, 401,000 contracts. Number 5, keeping it all in the family, keeping it all in the chip zone today. Nice tight chip zone. Number 5, NVIDIA, 483,000 contracts on the tape. 273 and about a half is where NVIDIA is hanging out right now, up 360 or about 1.35%. So a nice pop for NVIDIA. They're not that far from their 52-week high of 282 and a half. So talk about it, just a bipolar market. Some names dredging up their lows, some names threatening their 52-week highs again. It's a crazy market out there right now, listeners. Number 4, this is another one that's been making headlines of late. This is, for many of you, this is your surrogate for China. This is Alibaba, 103 and a half, up $3.50 right now. Making some big news earlier this week. They're going to break it up. I think 6 parts, something along those lines. So a lot going on out there with Alibaba. And again, they're 52-week low, $58, 52-week high, 125, almost 126. So kind of hanging out closer to the high, but still intriguing levels out there for Alibaba. It seemed like for a while there when China was very much under the microscope and people kept saying, where the hell is Jack Ma? Is he dead? Seems like an eternity ago now, but intriguing stuff nonetheless. Number 3. Yes, I said number 3. It's the fruit company, Apple, almost 162. So, wow, we were just at that 52-week low not too long ago, listeners. Let's see. When did we hit that low? That was in January. We kicked off the year at that 52-week low, listeners. And now here we are, 162 for Apple, up about $1.25 right now today, about 0.75%. And again, good for 541,000 contracts. Kind of light paper, but as the FLOWMASTER was saying, kind of a light day out there. Number 2, it's the Amazonians, 581,000 contracts on the tape. 101.84 is where it's trading right now, about $1.60. So unlike Meta, which has more than doubled since we did that poll, Amazon versus Facebook, not too long ago, Amazon still hanging out, not that far north of where it was at that time. But again, good for 581,000 contracts. And you know the number one name, it's the big dog, listeners. It is the old Tesla, 1.09 million contracts out there. There we go. 197, about 10, up about $3 on the day or so. And it does seem, listeners, like we are joined fashionably late, but better late than never, by the greasiest of meatballs, Mr. Mark Sebastian from OptionPit.com. Mr. Meatball, A, welcome back to the show, and B, what's catching your eye out there this week, sir?
Hey, sorry I'm a little tardy. Interesting week so far. We're getting most of the week, the NASDAQ has trailed. Today it's leading, but it's softened up. The market looks significantly softer today. VIX has come off the, threatening 18 and popped a little bit. The banking crisis seems to have taken a little bit of a breather, but still is in the ether. We haven't seen a big recovery out of the mid caps, and I think that's kind of interesting. A nice move in Intel this week, really leading the chips higher. I'm not sure why, but overheard that flow. Definitely one to keep an eye on. Is it going back to 40? Is it going to 35? I don't know. Maybe we've got some order flow telling us one way or the other.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting what's going on out there in Intel. I don't really see what's driving it, but it's a lot of flow. So someone's up to something out there in good old Intel. And again, it's kind of, I wouldn't say it's a sleepy name, but it's not exactly a name that lights up our top 10 all the time. So when it does pop in and there's not a lot of other underlying things driving it, certainly is worthy of note at the very least. Not a heck of a lot worthy of note right now in earnings season, listeners. If you want the full breakdown, we just had Matt on with me from the Advisors Option, talking about the whole last cycle, breaking down all of his earnings reports and everything else that we do over there. You can find it for yourselves, theoptionsinsider.com. Click on the Options News and Articles tab to check out all those reports for yourselves. And of course, check out the full network to get the Advisors Option. And we have a whole segment there called the earnings volatility report. So it's kind of fun there. We break all this data down right now, kind of coming into the dregs of it, unless you're really excited about Lululemon on Tuesday, which of course, sheer yoga pants. I can see why you get excited. Micron and Dave & Buster's, also McCormick. So you got some spice vol going on Tuesday. Outside of that, there's not a heck of a lot unless you're really excited about Paychex yesterday, listeners, or you like Skills with a Z after the bell today, or of course, everyone's favorite Kazoo before the bell today. Then you can get excited. But outside of that, not a heck of a lot this week. We are kind of waiting for the cycles to reset themselves. If you want to check the latest updated earnings season report, see where we went out. I don't have it on here in front of me, but last I checked, we were somewhere around 102%, I believe. So that still is higher. That still is above our long-term average right now of about 92%. So still outperformance. And certainly when we look back on the pandemic era, it was mostly underperformance, dramatic underperformance. So a little bit of outperformance is certainly interesting. Now I think everyone's eyes are glued on next earnings season, because that seems to be the one everyone was talking coming into this year. Q1 and Q2 earnings season going to be horrible. Q1 was not horrific, not as horrific as a lot of people thought. So some people are putting all that now on the Q2 cycle. We'll see. Will this be the one that really rings the recession warning bell out there? I suppose we'll see. Speaking of seeing, let's see what the FLOWMASTER's got in store for. The Arborist as we keep on rolling right on into the odd block.
It's time to break down the most interesting, unusual, and downright questionable options activity that's been identified by theoptionsinsider.com. It's time for the odd block.
All right, everybody, welcome to the Odd Block, the portion of the show where we get weird, we get wild, we just get downright whimsical sometimes here on the show. We're going to kick things off. A little birdie told me that the arborist in chief here is super excited about Carvana. You know this name, listeners. You probably have driven past one of their ridiculous car vending machines. If you haven't seen one, they are certainly a sight to behold. Whether the rest of the business model lives up to that sight, I'm not sure. They've had a lot of fits and starts, I should say, out there. Especially here in Illinois, they've been banned, then unbanned, then banned again. I don't know, some sort of drama with them here in Illinois. Trading $8.69, ticker symbol CVNA. We have talked about them on the show, obviously, even though it's been a little bit. A year ago, a very different story, as you might expect. A year ago, they were trading $126, listeners. So, man, how the mighty, if they ever were mighty, they have now fallen. And they hit their high for the year a few weeks later, right around 134.68. That was on April 4th. And then they just came for it by May 11th. So you're talking in the span of a month, they went down from about 134 to $30 even. They took $100 off the top like nothing, listeners, in Carvana. Then they kind of ranged around there for a while. By August, they participated in that rally. Remember, we saw a lot of names rally in last August. They got back up to about 54.5. And then that was kind of the last ray of hope for Carvana. They sold it off. It got down to about $3.50 towards the end of last year, beginning of this year. So I guess if you want to just look at year to date, they've actually had a little bit of a rally since then. They're up about 4 handles or 87%. So just year to date, they're looking great. But if you go obviously all the way back a year ago, it's a tale of, as the Rock Lobster would like to say, a tale of sadness and woe. But that said, Mr. Arborist, sir, what caught your eye out here in Carvana this week?
Well, it's funny. We were already on the call, and that was one of the alerts that fired past my on Trade Alert, and it was a buyer of 2,800 of the 9 calls that expire tomorrow, paying 16 cents, and it opens. And on the day, I think there's around 9,000 of those calls have traded. Sorry, make it 12,000. So, I mean, as you said, Carvana's kind of a funky one that's come back from the brink of death, I guess. I like those car vending machines. But the last story I saw in the news was somebody bought a really expensive car, and it turned out that the parts were stolen or something. And so they were trying to get a refund. So they've certainly had some hiccups. But if this is a name, it's so beaten up. And, when I see a short-term call buyer and knowing kind of how some of the short squeeze dynamics have played out, I quickly go and look at the borrow rate. You can check it on most brokerage platforms. So I can see on Fidelity, it is shortable, but it's expensive to short. And then in our platform, you can actually, if you type /borrow Carvana, you'll actually see the implied rate from the options and the posted rate at a leading broker. So it's a hard to borrow name, and maybe somebody's looking for a little bit of a squeeze. So that was one of them. And then, Mark, I wanted to tell you, if you hit your little green shortcut button, I gave you a couple new ones. One is actually a button that says China.
Big Dita?
Huh?
What is that? Big Dita.
Oh, that's Big Delta.
Oh, Big Delta.
Big Delta. You can call me Big Dita if you want. But the China one, because you mentioned Baba, and them announcing they're going to split obviously boosted shares. And so I think one of the bigger movers today is JD, which is another China-based conglomerate. So that seems to be a little bit of a trend too. So I was also looking at JD. You got a lot of the 45 strike calls in there today, 13,000 of them. So that was one of the biggest ones that I saw. Was that Carvana one's interesting. That one I'll probably play around with a little bit of stock and just kind of get in and get out.
I'm just super excited to have a big Dida button. I want to play around with that and see what my big Dida button does.
Give it a shot.
Oh yeah, China here too. Yes, you see all the Chinese ADRs. Look at you adding functionality as we talk here. So they don't call you FLOWMASTER /arborist for nothing. But if your kids are anything like my son, whenever we drive by one of those ridiculous Carvana vending, he's always like, "Dad, we have to get a car there." He just wants to get the giant novelty coin and go put it in and have the car come down the vending machine. He doesn't care if the car is any good or not. He just wants that experience. So I don't know if that experience is worth whatever 30, 40 grand to experience it, but c'est la vie. He seems to think that it is. Mr. Meatball, sir, I'm curious. Did these Carvana very near dated, somebody obviously swinging for some near-term fences here, we'll know by tomorrow's oddities whether these worked out or not. Did these come across your big money flow? And what are your thoughts on Carvana these days?
I hadn't seen these because I don't usually catch sweepers, but yeah, there's a ton of short dated flow in this. They're buying the 8.5s. They're buying the 9s. That's interesting. And even some of the 9.5s and 10s are going up. So maybe we're in for a short dated move here in Carvana. Have you seen, I've noticed an uptick in week of options in individual names over the last week or two, primarily in calls. The one that comes to mind was late last week. They bought the Occidental 60 calls right before it popped. Have you seen an uptick in this, or am I just seeing a few one-offs?
I've seen definitely a lot more near-dated stuff. It seemed like it started when we had all the contagion stuff a few weeks ago. Obviously, in the financials, there was tons of near-dated paper there, but it is spilling over, I think, into other names, too. Maybe not quite as aggressive as this Carvana one-day stuff. But, Henry, you're out there when you're not cutting down trees. You're looking at the flow all the time. Are you seeing something similar?
I haven't refreshed the stats on the weeklies and the single names. I've spent so much time looking at the 0 days in SPX lately that I might have missed some of the short-dated paper in the single names. I do know one thing that I've seen over the last year or two is we do see more overbuying and then kind of scalping out of the overage, meaning they want 1,000 calls, so they buy 5,000 and they basically scale out of the extra 4,000. It does seem to work out sometimes because the stock takes a little run and you do get a lot of attention. So when I try to trade some of this stuff, that's what I'm trying to figure out. Is it something that really has something behind it, or is it just somebody that is hoping to put on a position, more or less for free? And it's tricky. It's tricky differentiating those cases.
Like Mama always used to say, if you want 1,000 of something, buy 5,000 instead. Because what could go wrong with that scenario?
Yeah, how can you lose? How can you lose there?
I love it. I wanted 1,000. I'm going to buy 5,000.
Mark, I got to tell you, this just happened. So I was talking, and Henry and Mike, you'll think this is hilarious. I've been interviewing some people for a day trading position, and I got introduced to someone, and the strategy he had was like a 1 month out, like slow burn iron condor strategy. So I hung up.
That was his day trading 1 month iron condors.
He wasn't a day trader. He was not. So Lauren, my wife goes, "What was that?" I go, "Well, I was supposed to interview a day trader, and that guy was the opposite of a day trader." And Lauren goes, "He was a night trader?"
There you go. The humor falls differently on different people. He trades the Japanese government
with
bonds.
Night trading.
Yeah. He likes crypto and Japanese government bonds. What's wrong with that? To each their own out there. Yeah, iron condors not exactly going to be for the intraday swinging out there. Maybe.
No, it was not.
Unless he's all 0 day iron condors. That's a different game entirely.
He wasn't a day trader. He was a night trader.
You should put that in the description. Night traders wanted, and see what kind of people hit you up for that. I'd be curious to see what kind of people respond to that. Speaking of curious, let's see what else is going on out here in the old crazy town markets out here today. Let's see. Let's go to this one because Mr. FLOWMASTER, you were just talking about a similar name when we were at CBOE last week. All these little crappy gold names are just popping up on the radar. Not exactly surprising. Gold flirting with 2,000 again out there. Obviously getting a little bit of a resurgence with all this contagion tumult rocking the market right now. This is B2 Gold Corp, listeners. Ticker symbol BTG, so an appropriate ticker. Trading right about $4 today, $3.98, kind of unched on the day. Let's see. On the year, a year ago it was trading about $4.63. Hit its high for the year almost exactly a year ago, $5.07. That was on April 14th. Then you know the saga of gold, listeners. They came for it throughout most of the rest of the year. Hit its nadir actually in September of last year, $2.81. Then they rallied it again back up to $4.19. So back to where it is right now at the beginning of the year, January 25th. Then they came for it again, back down to $3.25, and now obviously rallying it again back up to about $4 right now. So very much matching the saga out there in gold is B2 Gold. And what do we see out there today? Somebody, or some groups of people perhaps, coming in and saying, you know what, maybe we like a little bit more longer-term gold upside here. In particular, we first noticed a block of 15,000 of the Jan 7/2 going up for 17 cents. Maybe this is the FlowMasters thing. Maybe they really wanted 2,000. They bought 15,000, and they're going to scale out of the rest. Then we also noticed as the day went on, another almost 9,000 going up of these 7/2 calls for 16 cents. A total right now of about 25, almost 26,000 of these 7/2 calls have traded, listeners. So it's trading at a 4. The 52-week high is $5.07, and we've got size going up here for the 17s. Now, it looks like some of these might have gone up out of sequence. That could kind of be playing with it a little bit as well. But in general, Mr. Flowmaster, did you notice these decidedly upside calls in everyone's favorite B2 Gold while you were chopping down trees today? And what are your thoughts, sir?
That is an interesting one. And so this is a really good example of one where I think looking at the data, you can see this is not one of those kind of, scalper positions, because the 15,000, it looks like the cross, right? So they bought about 8,000, 9,000, and then the broker that had the order, or the bank that had the order, positioned the rest, right? So because you see the 16-cent buyer in a sweep, or actually mostly on the box this morning, and then the rest of them for 17 cents. It's funny. I don't know in this one. I own some AU, which is Anglo Gold, Ashanti, and I'm not really a gold person, but it's interesting because that could be very defensive, right? When the world starts to fall apart, even though maybe now people kind of, the flight is into cryptos and a few other things, but they also do, you do see a jump in gold. So, I think what, Mike likes to watch the metals too. So I kind of like this one. I mean, this is $400,000 on an 88% out of the money January contract. So that, maybe somebody's looking for a little bit of consolidation in the space. I don't know.
Lots of upside here, and I was obviously joking. I don't think you're buying Jan if you're going to be doing your 1x5 trade there, buying 5 to get 1. But intriguing stuff here nonetheless. Mr. Meatball, did you notice this decidedly, shall we say, optimistic B2 Gold call paper, sir?
I did. The gold miners are a sad place to invest. People are always thinking they're going to go up and up and up because gold's going to rally, and then they seem to never be able to participate with moves in gold. I don't know what the story is. Maybe it's a management issue. I don't know, but yeah, I did notice these, and I said no thanks.
Yeah, this thing needs to more than participate. This thing needs to pretty much double. That does seem to have been a challenge for this name over the better part of the last year. But hey, we'll keep an eye on these, listeners. We'll see how our optimistic friend does. We'll get out of here on this one. Not quite as optimistic. You might say the underlying itself is pessimistic. It is Philip Morris International, listeners. Ticker symbol PM. You know what this one is. Trading 96 and about a half right now, up about 1 3/4 on the year. Let's see. A year ago it was trading $94. They got up to their high for the year of looks like about 109, almost 110, 109.81. That was back in May of last year. Then they sold it off down to its low for the year of about 82.85. That was in late September. Then they rallied it again all the way back to about 105 and change on February 1st. Then they came back for it again. This one's very, very volatile international tobacco name. Down to about $90 again in March before rallying it again right now over the last week and change. Up to about 96.5 where it's hanging out right now. And what do we got lighting up our eye of Sauron today? Listen, it looks like a put spread, but a put spread going out in June. So a little bit longer term, which is kind of interesting. I said we're hanging out at about 96.5. It was the 97.5, 87.5 put spread. So a 10 handle wide put spread, about $1 in the money. It went up for about $1 on the 87.5 puts and $3.20 on the 97.5 puts. Obviously $2.20, actually $2.25 because it was 95 cents on the 87.5 puts. So intriguing stuff. It seems like paper is actually, looks like they were selling this bad boy. So straight up selling and in the money put spread. So Mr. FLOWMASTER, kind of intriguing. We don't see straight up opening put spreads for size in a lot of these names. Usually when we do, it's a roll of one leg or the other. But this is someone coming in saying, perhaps, I don't mind picking myself up a little bit of Philip Morris, getting some cash. But hey, if I'm way off base, and this name is clearly volatile, so it could happen. It got down to 82 and change. If he's way off base, he's got this 87.5 put in his back pocket for a worst case scenario. Mr. FLOWMASTER, what say you?
Yeah, I kind of like that. I think it's exactly what it looks like. Somebody that was willing to take the $675,000 credit, take that risk. Basically be comfortable. That they're a stock buyer, at least down to about 87.5, but not if it implodes. So I kind of like that one, and that means June's not that far off.
Yeah, June seems far off now, but you're right. It isn't that far in the foreground there. And you're right. I don't hate this one either. Mr. Meatball, you get to be the final word here. What say you on this Philip Morris put spread, sir?
Yeah, they're trying to make some income off of it. Philip Morris, pretty reliable, not overly volatile. Decent risk reward. Don't love it, don't hate it. Is what I would say. It's not my style, but I understand what the guy's doing.
You should introduce this to your night trader friend. It's a nice longer term trade. He might like it.
It is.
It's right
I will.
Right up his alley for the night trade. I like that. Just keep on rolling. Let's see what kind of feedback you folks have. Are you night traders? Hit us up. Let us know as we keep on rolling right on into the mail block.
It's time to take your seat on the All-Star panel as we read your emails, tweets, Facebook messages, website comments, and much more. It's time for the mail block.
Might make a good flash poll. Are you a day trader or a night trader? Let's see. I'd love to see what the responses are. People will be like, what the hell are you talking? We might have to do that. Producers, let's do that. Let's put a flash poll out right now. Are you a day trader or a night trader? Let's just see what the responses are. Maybe we'll lose some Twitter followers. They'll be like, what the F are you talking about? Speaking of talking about things, let's go out to the live chat first. Let's go out to Frank. Frank's got a question for Uncle Mike, Mr. Frank 1209. He says, is Uncle Mike bullish in XLF right now? And how would he go about trading it? Just buy the ETF or maybe a call or a vertical? He's got an interesting point here, Mr. Uncle Mike. Everybody is hitting us up. Everybody and their mother and their grandmother. What do you think about banks right now? What do you think about financials? What do you think about Schwab? What do you think about XLF? It's just the trade du jour these days, Mr. Uncle Mike. So Frank wants to know, A, what are your thoughts? We haven't talked XLF with you in a while. So first off, let's start there. What do you think about XLF right now? And then B, if you were bullish, how would you go about setting it up, sir?
Well, so I think XLF's an interesting story right now in that if you buy XLF, you are buying pretty high quality companies. However, what you're also buying is a lot of volatility, most likely. It's one of those ones to where it could go either way. This could be the beginning of something worse in the banking sector, or this could be the bottom. Who knows? Because just from a charting standpoint, it's around the low 30s. So it's definitely down from the low 40s where it was at the beginning of 2021. If I were bullish, and just full disclosure, I really don't have a lot. I mean, there's some exposure to some banks that we own, but if I were bullish, I think one of the ways with which to look at on here would be, I'm just looking at April puts. Right now, you can go nearly 5% out of the money and sell an April 30 put. So in other words, with XLF at 31.5 or a little bit more than that even, you can still get roughly a 1% return on your money for 3 weeks if you're willing to own the stock and you want to be 5% out of the money. Now, let's say you want to stand next to the fire a little bit more and you're fine owning it and you want to get paid to own it. Well, right now, the 31.5 puts for April, once again, 22 days till expiration, those are trading in the high 60s right now. So you can get nearly 2% as a cushion for owning it. And then if the stock stays the same, there's 2%. If the stock goes higher, you didn't catch the bottom, but you made 2% on it. So if I were to get into it, I would probably just sell some puts to get into it, or I would do a comparison of seeing if it makes more sense to buy the stock and do an in-the-money covered call, whatever the case may be. But sell juice, that's how I would do it if I were to get into it.
You degenerate premium seller, you know, just never saw a bid you didn't want to smack. Nonstop premium selling with Uncle Mike here. You know, what are we going to do with this guy? Instead, let's keep on rolling. Let's go out. We were talking about Twitter earlier. I think our producers are putting up that poll as we speak, listeners. So I'll have some immediate, I'm sure, very confused results on that in a couple of seconds. In the meantime, let's go out to our actual question of the week. This was inspired by a discussion we were having earlier this week on our options boot camp show. We were joined by our buddy, Mr. Overby, over there. That was fun. We wanted to know, how do you prefer to trade your butterflies? Are you more of a traditional fly trader? So, you know, your traditional symmetrical, let's say, 5 handles out of the money, then 5 handles again, keeping everything nice and tidy? Or are you more of a kind of broken wing, skip strike person? You set them up all kinds of funky ways. Or is it more situational? You like, kind of depends on what market is giving you. Let's go around the horn. Let's go to Mr. Meatball first, sir. What is your answer? I have a feeling I know how you're going to answer it. And then B, how do you think our audience is answering, sir?
I mean, generally, I move to flies all the time. That's like my favorite strategy. I'll use broken wings. I'll use just about everything. So I'm definitely situational. But I find myself, 75% of the time, the one I end up with is a standard butterfly, not the broken wing. But every now and again, I will, if the situation fits, if the mood fits, then I will play in something else.
Standard guy. I would have thought you'd be more of a broken wing guy, but a standard fly guy. Interesting. Sometimes you surprise me, sir.
I'm a surpriseful guy.
You night trader, you. How would you vote now? Get over there and vote in our poll while it's around there. Come on. So far, we got night trader winning with 100%. So they're running away with it.
I'm in.
Mr. Flowmaster. Are you a day trader or a night trader? Then B, how do you like to set up your flies? And then C, what do you think our audience is voting for?
I trade usually during the day, although with SPX now you can trade it straight through till 5 o'clock. I have to keep a little cheat sheet to remember. I believe you can trade straight through till 5, and then it opens up again at 8:15 at night and trades all night. Sometimes we get 40, 50,000 contracts trade overnight, so it is tradable. Although I would say gotta be very careful on wide quotes, and the liquidity is not what it is during the day. I like kind of a normal butterfly every so often. I also don't mind 1x2s without kind of that third leg. So I think the audience will go with the symmetrical fly.
Mr. Uncle Mike, we got 2 votes for symmetrical. I'm surprised here. I got a feeling you're going to surprise me again. You're going to say, you're going to go off the reservation. You're going to say I'm a crazy rogue broken wing fly trader. What are you going to tell us, sir?
I'll do 1x2 ratios and stay naked on highly volatile stocks.
Yes, that's what I was looking for.
I would say typically I am more of a symmetrical guy, although my last butterfly was broken wing that I did a few weeks ago. So, but I would say a majority of the time I'm more of a symmetrical kind of a guy. It just seems to, if I'm doing them, I'm usually just buying an out of the money bullish butterfly in some way, shape, or form. If I do them, I can't say I do them too often, but I do them. And it just seems to work out better if it goes my way for closing it out. So I'm typically symmetrical, but that's just me.
You're a symmetrical guy if ever I met one, sir. Let's see. Right now, our audience is actually agreeing with you guys. They go for the traditional, or as you put it in the poll, also old school. Little pejorative there. I'm trying to tweak people a little bit. 45.5% saying they like the traditional style, and then a tie with 27.3% each saying the broken or skip strike, or that depends on the situation. Interesting. You've got a couple of days left. You posted this later in the week, listeners. This one will actually go into the weekend, our question of the week here. So get over there at Options to make your voice heard. It's also the place where you can vote day trader or night trader. You're not going to have much time for that one. That's a flash poll. So that, by the time the podcast goes live, you're probably going to miss your chance on that one. It makes me laugh every time I look at it here. But yeah, that's why you got to be following us at Options throughout the week, listeners, on Twitter for fun nonsense like that you can engage with. Let's go out here to Andrew L. He sent this in last week, Mr. Flowmaster. We didn't get to it. He wants to know, what settings should I be using when constructing my own unusual activity scans on brokerage platforms like TD? Secrets from the pros would be appreciated. Thanks. Well, luckily for you, Andrew L., we have the arborist in chief here joining us on the show today. Mr. Flowmaster, when you're not talking to us and when you're not chopping down trees, you spend your days building this stuff. What do you have to say for Andrew L.? What should he be looking for? What should he be configuring his scans?
I do like that question. I've used the I think they call it a sizzle scanner or something on the Thinkorswim platform, which is kind of in the same vein as the way that we think about unusual option volume. The probably the easiest things, and I think you can probably do most of them on TD, is you want you want the size to be greater than the open interest, or at least the total volume to greater than, maybe 3 or 4% of the total open interest if you're thinking about it on a symbol level. And I love these aggressive sweep call buyers. I don't think you can actually get that through TD. I think you have to come to Trade Alert for that one. And I tend to I think the sweet spot to me is things between 10 and about 40 days to expiration. So, and maybe 7, 8, 9% out of the money. So I think the most fun is to play with different parameters, things that kind of intuitively make sense. You're looking for a very clear-cut case of directional opening, aggressive option buying, with an upside focus. And there's a few different ways to go at it. And that's kind of, that's what's fun, is there are many ways to skin this cat.
I think opening is a key to that. You can see some size paper, and if they're just closing something out, that can be informative and interesting sometimes, because it could show you maybe a trade that they had on that maybe worked out, maybe it didn't. But it's not usually what you're scanning for in your first pass. You want to find some interesting new paper that you could maybe be informed by, and maybe that could help inform your trading. Mr. Meatball, anything to add there, sir, when you're constructing your scans?
No, I think the Flowmaster laid it out perfectly. For our audience.
All right, then let's keep on rolling. It is time to go around the block.
It's time to tell you what we'll be watching on our trading screens until the next episode. It's time for Around the Block.
All right, everybody, welcome to Around the Block, the portion of the show where we tell you what we're keeping an eye on until our next episode on Monday. Mr. Uncle Mike, we'll start with you. If you could keep your head away from the window that looks out onto the hellish, nightmarish landscape that is St. Charles, sir. What are you keeping an eye on in the markets?
I just see if we can stay above the 4,000 level. Tomorrow, I think, is a pretty key day for that. It's the last day of the quarter. A lot of quarterly options expiring. Just seeing 4,000 is the key right now. And then patiently awaiting for Mr. Jerome to tell us what to do.
Yes. Tell us what to do, Uncle Jerome. What should we all be up to? Mr. Meatball, same question for you, sir. What are you keeping an eye on until the Monday episode?
Well, tomorrow is the end of the quarter. We've got that big, huge JP Morgan roll in SPX coming up. So part of what's creating upside pressure is market makers are long a lot of the 40-65 calls right now. Expiring tomorrow, they still have a pretty decent delta. Tomorrow, that is gonna start to fade. So that could create maybe a little buying pressure. It'll depend on whether, when, and how JP Morgan executes their role in the next 24 hours. Plus, with Mike, I'm watching the 4,000 level. I'm watching 40-50 in the futures, 40-75 in the futures. I'm watching the NASDAQ because it's been soft most of the week, was stronger yesterday, and is definitely stronger today. And I'm interested to see whether this turnaround gets some follow through and we end up red on the day.
You'll be pleased and or surprised to know that your compatriot, the Rock Lobster, actually earned a legitimate point in our wrestling trivia game on Monday. So he actually has 2 points now to your 3.5, and I believe Uncle Mike's 5.5. So he's catching up to you. The rock
no,
lobster.
ours combined.
Oh, no. Don't go down that road. TOSAW will lose his mind if you try to combine your scores. Let's not go down that road.
Charles, so we're going the war of the firms, huh?
Let's not start that madness again. Let's go out to the FLOWMASTER / arborist in chief. Sir, what are you keeping an eye on until our next show for you next Thursday?
Well, I have to, Mark, Sebastian, thank you for bringing that one up, because it had slipped my mind, and that'll definitely be one to watch, because I think a lot of people listen to this show vividly remember the end of the year when they covered about 60,000 or 45,000 calls in the market, which was kind of weird. Usually they roll the whole structure. It's a call against a put spread. So if we get back up there, I definitely think that we could see some interesting stuff. The other thing I'll be watching is these financials. Mike mentioned KRE. I have a little position on in there. Those are the regional banks. My idea being that I don't think they're all going to go out of business, but there's definitely pain there, and sentiment can quickly shift. So this week things have been kind of mellow. Volatility's come down. Most of these beaten down banks have stabilized, but keep an eye on First Republic. Even Schwab, that one kind of got sucked in, and there has a lot of chatter about it. Their official release is that there's absolutely no risk kind of to them becoming insolvent, even if investors yanked their funds and their positions. But it's things can turn quickly, so I will be keeping an eye on that. My overall kind of hope is that people just become comfortable with the fact that the Fed is there to do what they need to kind of get people comfortable and confident that the system's going to hold up. So I'm kind of bullish over the next couple of weeks, but keep an eye on things.
All right, everybody. That music means that's all the time we have to keep an eye on things for this week. But before we go, let's go around the horn one last time, see what everyone's got cooking up their sleeves that may interest you. Let's start with the arborist in chief. Mr. Arborist, sir, everyone wants to know, where do you buy your chainsaws?
I still favor a nice gas-powered steel with a 24-inch bar. But if you're at all interested in option flow dynamics, seeing it in real time, understanding it, just come to SEBO.com, search for Trade Alert. We're in there somewhere. Request a trial. We also have an API for non-professional users, which means you can build some of your own analytics. I'm working on a video using that API in ChatGPT to write some Python code to do some fun things. So if I can get that to happen, I will certainly give you the link, Mark.
I look forward to that. I look forward to playing around with my big data as well. I can't wait to see what that button unleashes upon my screen. I'm a little scared, but that's always a good sign out there. Mr. Uncle Mike, same question for you, sir. Where should folks go if they want to learn more about all your goodness?
Well, it's hard to compete with the big data, but if you are looking to see some of my content, follow me on Twitter. I actually did put out my row video finally at Mike TOSAW. And also, if you're looking for a financial advisor who actually understands what the heck row is, feel free to reach out to me. Check out my website, stcharleswealth.com.
Yes, his much anticipated row. It's not a webinar, it's more of a video, but it's fun nonetheless. We retweeted it. You can find it if you follow him at Mike TOSAW, all one word, on Twitter. And last but not least, Mr. Meatball, sir. First off, it seemed like early on Night Trader is going to run away with it. And now, as we're coming into the end of the show, it seems like the day trading masses have awakened. Exactly 2/3, 66.7% choosing day trader, 33.3% going Night Trader, sir. So alas, doesn't seem like Night Trader is going to pull it off, Mr. Meatballs. So what do you say to that? And where should folks go to learn more about night trading?
Yeah, go to option.com. I'm writing content on individual stocks and VIX and volatility every day. There's just a ton of content on charting, on politics, all kinds of amazing reads. Go to option.com to check it out.
That is going to do it for us here on the old OB. But you know what? Don't worry if you're listening live. Just hang out for a little bit. We'll be back in about 20-odd minutes with our buddy the one, the only Mr. Dan Gramza to hold court on all things futures options. What's lighting it up over there at CME? We're going to find out in a little bit, so stay tuned for that. Then back again tomorrow, noon Central, 1 p.m. Eastern, for volatility views. And, of course, for all you cool kids in the secret club, back again after that with our buddy Mr. Amberson from ORATS to break down all the week's worth of unusual activity on options oddities before we take a nice break for the weekend and then come back in on Monday nice and rested with another episode of the Option Block. Stay safe out there, everybody.
The Option Block is brought to you by CBOE. When it comes to trading volatility, trust CBOE, the creator of the VIX Index, for in-depth and relevant information. CBOE's tools and services gives you up-to-date trade insights, analysis, and positions of VIX options and futures. No matter what kind of trader you are, there's plenty of useful information to take the guesswork out of creating your portfolio strategy and to help you make more educated moves in the market. Visit www.cboe.com/VIX today to learn more. You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network, the home of the Options Podcast. For more quality options programs, visit theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app available in the iTunes and Google Play stores. Select programs are also available via live stream at mixlr.com/options-insider. That's mixlr.com/options-insider. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, stocktwits.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions at theoptionsinsider.com.